we treat others with respect and caring, the best in them usually comes out. I'm sure that makes sense, right? But the same happens when we treat ourselves the same way. But the thing is, we tend to be a better friend to other people than we are to ourselves. We are more willing to treat other people with love and respect and caring more readily than we are willing to extend those same feelings to ourselves. So what kind of friend are you to yourself? Are you critical of yourself? Do you second guess yourself in your decisions, and do you doubt yourself a lot? Do you find that you tear yourself down way more often than you do build yourself up? Imagine treating yourself like you would a friend. Would you be encouraging, warm, and sympathetic to yourself? Think about what a typical day would look like if you were on your side. What would it feel like to appreciate your good intentions? So what I need you to do is just pause the video, get a piece of paper or notebook, and just write down some of the answers to these questions, because these are going to prompt your mind and give you some ideas in terms of how you can start to treat yourself with a whole lot more self-compassion. So please pause the video right now. Great. So why is it good to be good to ourselves? Why should you be good to yourself? So in the absence of any kind of self-compassion, what ends up happening is things like negative beliefs and negative self-talk end up taking over. And we looked at that last week. We looked at that in the previous module, where we looked at how to overcome negative self-talk. So the whole idea is that with enough self-compassion, we don't have that negative self-talk coming up in the first place, right? So what kind of things come up when you don't have enough self-compassion? Things like it's selfish to think about what you want. How many times have you heard that? Put others first. You don't deserve love. You know, typically when people have been in really bad relationships and bad situations, they start to think that they don't deserve love. And that's everybody deserves love, no matter who you are. You fail if you dream big dreams. You know, maybe you won't, and maybe if you fail, you'll be able to rebound from that failure and you'll learn something in it rather than not ever trying at all. So we want to have some kind of something to counter that negative self-talk that ends up becoming the default if we don't have any kind of self-compassion. So the first reason why it's good to be good to yourself is that think of the golden rule. Treat other people the way that you want them to treat you. That same rule applies to you. We should treat other people with dignity and respect, including yourself, because that golden rule is a two-way street. It applies to you and applies to other people, right? And applies to yourself and how you treat yourself as well. So it only makes sense that we should treat people with dignity and respect, and we should also treat ourselves with the same dignity and respect that we extend to other people. And the more influence you have over someone, the more responsibility we have to treat that person well. Especially if you're an adult or an uncle or a parent and you're taking care of small kids, you've got a responsibility to treat them well, is it not? If you're a surgeon, you must be careful with your patients. You've got a responsibility to treat them well because their lives are in your hands. Here's a great question. Who affects you the most? Who do you spend more time with on this planet than any other person? Who influences what you believe, think, and do and say more than anyone else? And that person is yourself, is it not? You spend more time with yourself than anyone else because you're always with yourself. No matter where you go, there you are, right? So you have a responsibility to treat yourself with the same compassion that you treat other people, because you have such a huge influence on yourself, right? And finally, being good to yourself is good for others. When you increase your own well-being, you usually become more patient, you become more cooperative, you become more caring. And how does that affect your relationships? How does that affect your communication? How does that affect how you deal with problems in relationships, right? When you're a better person, it just allows you to bring more of your innate resources out into the world. So treating yourself well allows you to do that. So just answer these questions for a second here. How would it affect your relationships if you were more patient, calmer, and confident? Just write down the answer to these questions. Feel free to pause the video. What are some of the ways that you can start treating yourself better? So here, just make a list of a few things that you can do to start treating yourself better. Could you be more encouraging to yourself? Could you be more compassionate to yourself when you're facing a challenge? Could you maybe find little ways, not expensive ways, just little ways of treating yourself better? Running yourself a bath and maybe writing a little entry in a journal that's encouraging, or thinking back to something that you did very well and, feeling good about that thing. It doesn't have to be anything big, but what are some of the ways you can start treating yourself better? And how would you show someone that you love and care about them? So if you think of a friend or a loved one or a partner, how is it that you show that you love and care about them? What are the different ways that you do that? Do you speak words of encouragement, words of love and respect to them? Do you buy them gifts or show them acts of kindness? Do you just spend time with this person? What are the ways that you show love? And how could you extend these actions to yourself so that you're able to give? It's hard to give something that you don't have, isn't it? But if you're able to give love to yourself, then you have more love to give out as well. So how could you extend these words, these actions? If you speak words of encouragement to other people, maybe you can start speaking words of encouragement to yourself. If you like giving people little gifts and showing them acts of kindness, how can you start giving yourself little gifts? And how could you start showing yourself little acts of kindness throughout the day? How could you start speaking to yourself in a more encouraging manner? So just think of the different ideas and think, which of these could I start to implement in my day-to-day life to start showing myself a whole lot more self-compassion? Right now, we're going to do a compassion exercise that will allow you to actually powerfully feel the benefits of being more compassionate to yourself. So right now, I just need you to take a deep breath. Slowly let it out and just clear your mind. You can feel free to close your eyes. And think of a time when you are on someone's side. It might be a friend you're encouraging, or maybe someone is gossiping about your friend and you stepped in, or there's someone that you're protecting. Any time that you're on someone's side, just think about that time. And remember what it felt like in your body, and just recall some of the thoughts and feelings that you had at that time when you're on someone's side. Right now, apply this feeling and attitude to yourself. Get a sense of being an ally, an advisor, a friend to yourself. Like you're the one who's protecting yourself. You're the one who's encouraging yourself. And bring to mind times when you were really on your side, when you're encouraging yourself through a challenge maybe, or a time that you did something very well and you congratulated yourself, like, yeah, I did it, man. And you felt great about that. Any time that you're on your side, big or small, doesn't matter whatsoever. That's it. And then let the feelings, thoughts, and intentions of being a true friend sink into you. Being a true friend to yourself. Just allow that to sink into your mind and into your body. That's it. And just notice how you feel more different. How does it feel when you feel more compassionate about yourself? Do you not feel more calmer? Don't you feel more love, more appreciation for yourself? More encouraged? And think about how it would be to face challenges and hard times, or any time, with this level of self-compassion, with this level of being there to encourage yourself, to advise yourself. And that's the true power of self-compassion. Now we're going to look at how to tap into your inner strengths that you might not have recognized as strengths before, and to look at those things that we thought or might have thought were weaknesses, and to turn those things around and actually make them a strength. So it's easy to dismiss what you've achieved, what you're good at, or your positive qualities. Don't dismiss those things just because they seem natural or easy to you, okay? What I need you to do, and I'll help you prompt your mind the next slide, is just to write a list of absolutely everything and anything that you know you can do either very well or just well enough, just competently. And you're going to carry this list around with you and add to it whenever something new occurs to you. Now, the main thing with this is to remember that just because you can do it, or just because many other people can do it, that doesn't mean that it's not important. Because remember, there are also many, many other people that can't do that thing. So for example, maybe you know how to drive, or you know how to cook, right? You might know how to use a computer. You might know how to speak a second or a third language. It might be anything whatsoever. Just because you know a lot of other people that can do those things doesn't mean that it's not a small thing. There's a whole bunch of other people who can't do those things. There are people who can't drive. There are people who don't know how to cook. There are people who don't know how to use a computer. There are people who can't speak a second language or a third language, or whatever the case may be. So don't dismiss that thing just because other people can do it. It's about what you can do, not what other people can do, right? It's about recognizing those things, especially those small things that are so easy to take for granted, which are always there. Want to tap into that power. And I'm going to challenge you to make this list no less than 50 things, right? Because I know you can probably write 100. So I want you to write a list of 50 things minimum that you can do. And I swear you're going to be surprised. First 10, 20 will come quite easily to you. 30 might be a little more difficult. Those last 10 or 20, man, you're going to really, really tap into some things that you never actually thought, like, man, I didn't know I could do that. Even if it's small things, and if it's something that you've done just the one time, it counts. Because if you can do it once, you can do it again, can you not? So no matter what it is, you got the 5th prize in something, it doesn't matter. You got that prize because you didn't get the 6th prize, isn't it? Write it down, anything whatsoever. So here's some questions just to prompt you. Have you ever done anything well, right? Have you ever said anything complimentary to anybody? Have you ever encouraged anyone? Have you ever given anyone a compliment or given them an advice, a piece of advice or something? Have you ever successfully learned anything? Driving, how to write, cooking, reading, anything at all, how to use a computer, right? How to change a piece of equipment, how to sew, how to knit, how to dance, anything whatsoever. Do other people ever say that you're good at something? Now, for some of these, you don't have to write down the actual answer, like what it is that you're good at, and feel free to do so if you want to. But just prompt your mind like, hey, yeah, many people have encouraged me that I'm good at stuff, right? It's just to prompt and prime your mind that there are things that you can do. Are you ever able to give others good advice or encouragement in some way? Do you have any leadership qualities? And a leader doesn't mean that you're standing at the top of a mountain telling everybody what to do. It just means that you live life on your own terms and that you are the one that can set the standard for something, no matter how small that standard might be, right? You can, if you can control yourself and you can influence yourself to do something, then you're automatically a leader, regardless of if other people follow you or not. Do you ever finish things, right? That's a strength in itself. Do you want things to get better for yourself and for those around you? Okay, now what I need you to do is just pause the video and just block out 10 minutes and write down a list of 50 things, 50, of things that you know that you can do either very well or just well enough. You don't have to be the best cook in the world. You don't have to be Gordon Ramsay. If you can cook, if you know how to boil a kettle and make a cup of tea, then feel free to put that, right? Believe it or not, some people actually don't know how to make a good cup of tea. And if you know how you can make a good cup of tea, a good cup of coffee, then heck, write it down. Okay, now let's look at those things that we consider to be weaknesses. If we focus on what is not right about ourselves, rather than what is right, then we run the risk of limiting our self-belief. It's good to improve ourselves, right? It's good to look at those areas where we're not so strong. But if you focus on your perceived weaknesses without either taking steps to improve them or giving a fair focus on your strengths, then that'll get us nowhere. So what I want you to do right now is you're going to write down a list of things that you consider to be weaknesses, right? Things that you consider not to be a very good strength on your part. And we're going to reframe this thing into a strength. What I mean by reframe is you're going to take something, you need to look at it from a different perspective. And you're going to ask yourself, how could this thing be a strength in another context, in another situation? How could this thing be beneficial? How could this thing that I think is a weakness actually be an advantage in some situations? And that allows you to not only have more self-compassion for yourself, but to actually say, man, this thing that I thought was actually limiting me is actually a strength. I just need to use it differently. And that will allow you to have so much more energy, so much more confidence to actually use those strengths. So let's take this one, for example. Let's say you consider yourself to be very stubborn. You're very hard-headed. And everyone's like, oh, this person's so stubborn, you can't change their minds, right? This can be reframed into you've got very single-minded determination. If you've locked onto something, then that's what you're sticking to. You've got that focus that no one else can deter. And that is a strength in the right context, is it not? Or maybe you're prone to worry and anxiety, right? You tend to picture things in the future working out in a certain way, and this makes you scared in the moment. You can reframe that as having a very powerful imagination, because imagine having such an imagination where you look at something and you feel it as if it's happening right now. Man, that is a resource. Trust me, that's a powerful resource. So in the right context, that can be changed around. So view that as being a powerful and vivid imagination, and imagine using that resource to then set goals, to then visualize yourself carrying out certain processes. It's a powerful thing that you can tap into. So take any negative belief that you have about yourself, any negative habit, and creatively flip it around so that it becomes a positive resource. So what I want you to do right now is take a list of 3 things, right? 3 things that you consider to be a weakness on your part, and then creatively find ways of how could this thing be a strength. So for each weakness, I want you to find 2 ways that you could reframe that thing into a strength. We already looked at stubbornness, could be single-minded determination, might be focus, right? Just think of different ways of a strength. You might say, oh, I'm a very lazy person. Maybe you're not lazy, but you only take action on things that you're committed about. Or you want to find the fastest and easiest way of doing something. You're a very efficient person. You've just reframed you being lazy, right? So be creative. There is no wrong answer. So long as it's an advantage for you and you can look at that thing differently, then it's a positive. So let's look at what we've covered today. We learned first, we want to treat ourselves like we would a good and trusted friend. We want to extend the same feelings to ourselves. And it's more than fine. It's more than okay. It's more than great to have compassion for yourself, because the opposite of that is what? Self-doubt, talking to ourselves negatively. That doesn't work in the long term. And final thing we want to do is recognize and appreciate our strengths. The things that we can do, it doesn't matter if other people can do them well or even better. The fact is that you can do that thing. And if you can do it, then it's a strength. And look at those things that you might have considered a weakness and creatively flip that thing around as a strength. And that actually helps when you're criticizing yourself. If you find yourself criticizing yourself, right, you can then actually flip that criticism into a strength as well. So you can not only challenge the thought, but you can actually get a benefit out of that negative thought if and when it does come up. So that is a powerful, powerful resource. So for your next steps, this is what I want you to do. Whenever you face a challenge, practice responding with self-compassion rather than criticism. Whenever you make a mistake or you fail at something, don't berate yourself. Have compassion for yourself, because that'll allow you to pick yourself up and to engage with that problem a whole lot more differently. Carry your strengths list with you wherever you go. And you can make this a note on your phone if you want. You can type a message, save it as a draft in your email. Just have it with you whenever you go. And whenever you notice something new, a new strength, no matter how small it is, jot it down there. In the end, you'll have like 150 strengths, and you might not remember all of them, but just being able to browse through those things whenever you need that quick jolt of confidence, it's a nice resource to have to go through rather than sitting down and thinking, what am I good at? You've got this thing with you at all times. It'll really boost your confidence and your self-esteem. And then what I want you to do is every day, could be in the morning or the evening, review your strengths list every day for at least a week so that you can let it sink into your subconscious mind, sink into your very being, and start carrying yourself and looking out as well for other things that could be potentially strengths. Because the truth of the matter is that you've got literally hundreds, yes, hundreds of strengths within you. We just need to recognize them and appreciate them for what they are. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. And I encourage you to watch these videos again, practice everything that you've learned. And remember, it's not about trying to go from 0 to 100 overnight. It's about building the habit, building the muscle, so that over time that thing sticks and stays with you and it's more deeply ingrained. So don't try and do too much at once. Do a little bit every day. Practice that mindfulness twice a day. You can increase it over time. Challenge any negative self-talk that you have. Don't let it sit there, right? And be more compassionate to yourself. Recognize your strengths. You keep doing this, it builds on itself. In the end, you're going to be walking differently, talking differently, and thinking differently if you keep at it. Thank you so much, friend. I wish you nothing but all the best in your life. All the best and take care.